I also think that, great coaches all have a superpower, and just, again, digging into your background and your various stops as a coach, it would seem that building confidence in your teams and your players might be your superpower. I can't imagine you acquire that skill without having experienced on the other side as a player. And, again, I think just looking at when you came up as a player, and I mean, we were talking about this before we hit record. I mean, you were playing, essentially professional hockey as a 15-year-old, but doing so, I think, at a time when, you couldn't go on the internet and see what the depth chart was at Wisconsin, or what an obvious path was to maybe plan the national team. So I'm guessing somebody must have shown you confidence to kind of give you that springboard, because it's great to be a great player when you're 15, but I'd have to think it's still intimidating walking into that locker room.
Oh yeah, was it ever? It's full of national team players, and quite a bit older than you, and there's 15 to 20 years old. That's a bigger age gap than 30 to 35, right?
For sure.
So there was a lot of people that helped me as I was growing up, and to build that confidence. And we'll get to sort of the great coaches I've had, because to me that's the biggest impact. But I also give credit to those players in the room. They allowed a young punk to come in and learn from them, and they didn't treat me differently. They included me. So, I was really lucky, whether it's your Kelly Bichards or Haley Wickenheisers or Dana Antel's, like the women in that room that were pushing to already be on the national team, or that were already on the national team. Maybe they saw something in this young kid that reminded them of themselves a little bit. But they brought me into the fold, and I never felt like an outsider. Like, don't kid yourself. I was still counting in line to make sure I didn't have to go against Wick. And as a young punk, I was smart enough to know how to do that.
That's funny.
But those girls, they showed me the way. And I remember watching one time, I was in that range, 15 to 17 years old, and I was watching Kelly Bichard do chin-ups. And I think she got to 8 or 10. And I thought to myself, okay, when I'm 22, I need to make sure I'm doing that, so I'm as good as Kelly Bichard. Like, they just inspired me. And in a lot of ways, they didn't even know they were doing it. It was just by them having the presence and showing me how to train, how to be professional. So I benefited from that. And when you learn those little traits, that builds your confidence, because you got somebody you're chasing, but they're also helping you as you chase them. So I was really lucky with teammates early on in my career. And then, I think of starting here at the Oval, and whether it's Kathy Berg or Wally Kozak, coaches that saw potential in me and believed in me, because self-confidence takes time to grow. You need people around you who will, to your point of John Herdman, provide that belief until they see it themselves. And, Wally Kozak is the consummate teacher. Like, that was his profession. He was a teacher. And then his passion for hockey just elevates that. And, he's always said, whether he was coaching me or now that he mentors me, our job as a coach is to transmit belief. And that's what he did. He played me as a 15-year-old. He just didn't have me on the team. I was playing. So again, to build confidence, you need the experience. And too often we think kids should be confident, but they don't play. I don't know what you do in life that you don't do, but you should be confident in. Like, that, it's just an oxymoron.
Totally.
So, right. So for me to have that behind me, my teammates believed in me, my coaches believed in me. I was allowed to fail. I wasn't penalized for failing. I was just learning. To get those reps in of failure is so important. And that's where I think Wally has provided me the best foundation, both as an athlete and then, as a coach. He's given me a root system that allows me to better understand what good coaching should be and is. You move into my university years, and I get Mark Johnson. You talk about playing with a smile. Like, that's Mark. Mark's like, man, if you don't enjoy coming to the rink, like, his dad's Badger Bob, he's got a good history there and a good lineage to understanding the value of the game. So, Mark, I can't tell you technically what Mark adjusted in my game. Now, there's lots of little details, but Mark made me feel the most comfortable version of myself on the ice. Mark empowered me to be the most genuine version of me, whether it be, as a player or a person in that program. And to this day, I try to be the best Mark Johnson I can be. He's calm. He was cool in all situations. He understood the person always before the player. And, I do a lot of things on purpose. to try to be the best Mark Johnson I can be. The biggest one is being calm and poised on the bench and making the bench a fun place to be. So, you think of how that shaped me and building my confidence now as a coach. He's still doing that. This is a shift that I've made in the last 3-4 years because of him. So, I've had good people. Mel Davidson, I can't go through a national team career and not be impacted by Mel and how hard she worked. She was a woman in a male dominated industry in a generation before me, and there's so many women like her. And I know the challenges I face in my time. I can only imagine theirs. So, I don't know if you always appreciate it at the time, but certainly now looking back upon it, I appreciate her capacity to stay diligent in the work side of it and always give her best effort when I can't imagine the roadblocks she faced. So, there's lots of people that have helped me become who I am and therefore help with my confidence.
What I find amazing about what you just said, Carla, is that, you know, throughout that whole period that you just explained, it's not like you were, I mean, your biography isn't the Rudy biography. Like, in all fairness, I mean, you were a heck of a player. And I think it just goes to show that confidence in being treated a certain way, like that matters to everybody. And just because you've got a player with a lot of talent on your roster, it doesn't mean that you still don't need to build them up and treat them, treat them the right way.
No, it's we all know this. It's in every leadership book. It's in every great quote you're ever going to find. It's not. None of this is secret.
Yeah.
We know it. It's finding the right time to utilize it and recognizing no end result, no medal, no anything, no check will make up for a negative experience. It maybe softens it, but at the end of the day, if the experience to getting to that moment is tainted and negative, every time you look at that end result, you will have that same feeling. And I think that's an important reminder. It's not winning at all costs. And we live in a society that it's either winning or development. And I'm like, who decided it's two separate entities? Like it's all one and it's going up together. And so how we treat our players and what we do with them is so important. And that was a really important piece for us when we went to the World Championship. So I'll jump back to that story, but after I had my moment of vulnerability and that team came to me and helped me out, the next thing we did is we had created an individual, we called it a difference maker card. And we had sat down as a staff and went through every player and put their absolute strengths, two as a hockey player and one as a human. And we put it on a card, we printed them, we laminated them, and we gave them to them individually. We talked them through it. And one of our key players, one of our veterans, was in tears. And I asked, like, why are you crying? And she said, nobody has ever said this to me. And we came away from those difference maker cards saying, we don't need you to be anything other than who you are. We just need the best version of you, the most confident version of you as we enter into this championship. And the coolest thing for me, Aaron, was after we won, they're starting to post on social media. Our players are. And there's one of two of our players with the trophy, and they got their sunglasses on. They're in their room. And behind them, I can see their difference maker cards over their bed. How cool is that? So
That's amazing.
You talk about building players up. I think as coaches, we're so quick to think coaching is correcting. And a big part of our job is that it's trying to make sure that we can minimize our mistakes to maximize our chances of winning. But I would be intrigued if somebody asked those players, what were the key moments in helping us have success at that Worlds? I'd be really hard pressed to think that wasn't a key moment for all of them. I know, and as a coach, you can imagine the feeling of seeing this response from these players, knowing that this matters to them. Like, it filled my cup, I think, as much as it filled theirs.
I sense that that's a great exercise for every coaching staff to go through, because, I'd be curious to know if you can relate to this. I think it's part of it's human nature, but the easiest thing to do when you go, whether it's after game, win or lose in most cases, or after practice, the coaching staff gets together in the room, and then it's so easy for it to become like a gripe fest, and you just point out all the
Yes.
things that weren't good enough. And I would imagine that going through that exercise is probably just as influential on the coaching staff and their mindset as it is on the players.
Right. And because to your point, Aaron, like I'm the same. Like we're all human, so you're gonna have those moments where you're like, oh my gosh, that was just awful. Like, and it's just. But if you can find these moments to recenter, the impact they can have on everyone in the group, and in a short term competition, you have no time for it. You have no time for
Yeah.
negativity. It will ruin you. It is so intense that you have to find a way to keep it positive and keep it going. And it doesn't mean it can't be fake. Positive isn't fake. I,
Yeah.
I said we were a fake team. Like it's not like it's all rosy, but you're driving it to this positive place that could be our best chance at success. It doesn't guarantee it either, but it's our best chance at success. And, looking at the lens and seeing our players through a positive lens is an important piece for coaches because it's so common for all of us just to see the flaws. And the more we work with players, the more we see
Yeah.
their
Great
flaws, in
point.
all honesty.
Yeah.
So, having that reset moment for yourself as a coach is never a bad thing either.
Well, I want to point out too that again, just in getting ready for this conversation, I came across a quote, and it was from your predecessor, Thomas Pacina, because prior to finishing third at the World Championships, Czechia qualified for the Olympics for the first time. And one of the quotes from the players was, he didn't make the results of playing on the national team um, relevant to who you were as a person. And I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but it was just the
Mm-hmm.
importance of saying, hey, like what this team accomplishes has nothing to do with who you are as a person. And um, I think hockey is a game of reminders, not just on what happens at the rink, but what happens in life. And I read that, and it really struck me. I'm like, that's probably something we all need to hear from time to time, in terms of how we approach a role as a coach or as a player or work or whatever endeavor you're in.
One of the most important things to anyone, especially competitive athletes, is feedback. No one wants to hear a great game all the time. They want to know why they played well or why they didn't. And Power Player is a very good platform for this because it encapsulates many of the areas of the performance spectrum. Now, a player might have gone pointless in a game, but a coach can watch that player's shifts and then say to that player, hey, we scored 4 goals, you were on the ice for 3, and you made a really good play that helped us get into a scoring situation, and that is really important for our team. A player who played hard and smart in a game might not show up on the scoreboard, but the analytics folks might think he was the best player in that game, and we need to make sure that we can assess those areas of a player's game and provide that feedback to him or her. Practice is also an area where coaches can generate a lot of dialogue with players. How you practice is how you play, and many good youth hockey coaches have found a way to film practice, review it, and give feedback regarding work ethic, execution, and compete level. Power Player has metrics for all of this, as well as a great area for using video, which to me is the best teaching tool we have and which I utilized a ton on this platform. Power Player allows coaches to reach a greater number of players on a larger number of topics in a way that today's young athlete needs and understands.